Hey everybody, this is Jerry Scarlata, and this is episode 28 of Thrive TV, and today we're going to talk about sitting. Why sitting is so bad, and a couple things that you can do to fight the sitting epidemic. So, lately sitting has been a big deal in the news. A lot of people have compared sitting to smoking, saying that sitting is the new smoking, which is probably a bit much, but I will say that sitting is hard on your body, is terrible on your body, and it's for more than the reasons that you're really hearing about. Not only is sitting bad, but standing still for a long period of time is equally as bad. So sitting for a long period of time and standing still for a long period of time are both bad, some in similar ways, some in other ways, but today specifically we're going to go over sitting. We'll talk about standing still just a little bit, but I want to show you three reasons, not three, but three reasons that why sitting is bad for you, and cover each reason a little in depth, and then we'll go over some things that you can do to battle those reasons. So the first reason why sitting is bad, number one, is mobility. So as we get older, we get less. As we get older, most people get less mobile. If you look at someone who's 60, 70, 80 years old, you retire around the age of 60, 65, and then you see someone 10 years later, and it looks like they've aged about 20 to 25 years. They don't look like a 70 to 75-year-old. They look like an 80 to 85-year-old, 90-year-old. Maybe not 90, but you get the point. Whenever you retire, statistics show that the vast majority of people who retire around 65, by 10 years later, they're dead. That's a little gruesome, but the facts, it's, you stop moving, and therefore your body shuts down, and it doesn't have any reason to live, so you're older in age anyway, so that's it. It doesn't have any reason to move. So compare that to someone who's 30 years old and they start to sit, and by the age of 40, they have a hard time moving, have a hard time getting up and sitting down, and have a hard time just going outside and running around in general. So whenever you sit down for a long period of time, your body starts to conform to that position. So when you sit down, your legs are tucked up and you're generally hunched over, because most people don't concentrate on staying up tall whenever they sit down. They're hunched over just a little bit, typing or writing or whatever they're doing. So your body starts to conform to that position, and it doesn't take very long. Whenever you have an injury, your body will compensate for the injury no matter what it is. So say I have a broken tibia and I put a boot on, my body's going to start compensate for that broken tibia in 10 minutes. So as soon as I start walking differently, my body adjusts to that walk in 10 minutes. So that's how quickly your body starts to compensate for a position. So imagine that's a lot of 10 minutes sitting at a chair for 8 hours a day for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, however long it is. So anyway, your body conforms to that position. Your hip flexors start to shorten, your knee extensors start to lengthen because your knees are your knee is flexed all the time, and your posture starts to roll forward because you're in this position all the time. So your chest muscles, anterior shoulder muscles start to shorten, and your muscles in your back and posterior shoulder muscles start to lengthen because of this position. So because of all of that, moving, especially through your shoulders, through your T-spine, and through your hips, becomes hard to do. Number two is breathing. So to go along with the posture that we're talking about, specifically the upper body, whenever you come into this anterior rolled position, your shoulders forward, what you're doing is your rib cage starts to compress down onto your diaphragm. And that's where you should do most of your breathing, but most of us breathe through our upper chest because we sit all the time. Our diaphragm doesn't get the work that it's supposed to do because we're not mindful of our breathing. We're going to go over that in a second. And we breathe through our shoulders and our chest more than we should. So your breathing is drastically affected by how you sit, how much you sit, and then how you sit. Whenever you're down like this, your rib cage is it's going to crush your diaphragm, and it's not going to allow it to do what it's supposed to do. Your diaphragm needs to move in order to help you function correctly in a lot of different areas. So that's number 2. Mobility, number 1. Breathing, number 2. And finally, the fountain of youth is number 3. Fountain of youth. Boom. Fountain of youth is number 3. What is the fountain of youth, you ask? No, it's not something you go and find, some mystery fountain out in the wilderness. The fountain of youth is your butt, this thing behind you. So again, if you notice someone who is 40 years old plus that's been sitting for a long period of time, they are straight up and down. Their posterior is straight up and down from here all the way down. Nice and flat. So that's 2 things. Number 1, because of sitting, your hips start to tuck forward. So your hips start to tuck under like this. All right. So you get this kind of look to you with your hips tucked. And then number 2, your glutes. You've heard the old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. Well, when you sit all the time, you don't use your butt, so you lose your butt. And your butt is your fountain of youth. If you have your butt, if you have strength in your butt and in your glutes throughout your life, you're ahead of the game significantly, because that's what gets you up and down. That's what gets you off the chair. That's what gets you off the floor. Obviously, you need some other things to go along with it, but you have that. If you have that, then you're ahead of the game. So your fountain of youth needs to be strong, and worked on constantly in order for you to fight the sitting battle. So these are the 3 things that are affected most by sitting. Mobility, sitting in this position. We talked about the hips and we talked about the shoulders. Can you see me? Yes, you can. Breathing, crushing your diaphragm, and then fountain of youth, your butt is not getting any work. So what are some things that we can do in order to fight the good fight? So we'll take each one of our problems step by step, and we'll talk about things we can do to fight them. So first we talked about mobility. So what can we do for mobility? Well, number 1 is moving around more often. And obviously that may be easier for some than it is for others. So for mobility, we can move more. And that can mean simply getting up and down every 20 minutes, or adjusting in our seats. So it can be as simple as, and this isn't as effective, but it can be as simple as just not sitting square in your seat like this for 8 hours. And a lot of people might do that. So just adjusting your seat, sitting on one side, sitting on the other, crossing one leg, crossing the other, but doing it often and not staying in one position for longer than 20 or 30 minutes. And that's the key, is trying to move around a lot. Now, if you can, get up, walk around for 3 to 5 minutes, go say hi to everybody, do some networking, talk to your friends, catch up, and go back and sit down, if you can do that. So those are 2 easy things that you can do to work on just not sitting long enough. It's not gonna actively work on remobilizing the things that are immobile, your shoulders, immobile, your shoulders and your hips. However, it will fight the fight. It's not staying in one position is going to help you to not conform to that position. All right, so mobility. So the next one we talked about was breathing, and to help with our breathing, a couple things that we can do. Number 1 is sit up straight, right? So to work on our breathing, one thing that we can do is sit up straight. And a lot of people have the argument that it's hard to sit up straight and it gets tiring when you sit up straight. And I'll agree that if you just sat straight up like this for 8 hours, it would be hard. I mean, yeah, it'd be tiring. So, however, it's hard for most people to sit up straight because they don't sit up straight. your body, again, will adapt to whatever position you put it in. So if you're constantly putting it into this position, then your back spinal stabilizers don't have to work. So they're just down. So as soon as you try and sit up, they have to work. So all of a sudden they're like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? They're working hard, and they get fatigued. However, if you are sitting up straight naturally all the time, then your body just stays in that position. For people who concentrate on their posture and on being in a neutral position, they don't have to work on sitting up straight. Their body just like, you sit down and that's just how you sit, neutral. So one thing that you can do is sit up straight, and then while you're doing that, just being mindful of your breathing, being mindful of your breath. And obviously you have to do work, so you can't just sit there and constantly be focused on your breathing. However, every once in a while, if you're sitting there and you realize that you're hunched up like this and you're typing hard and you're kind of like frantic and stressed out, relax yourself, put your shoulders down, take 30 seconds to calm yourself down and relax. Take some big deep breaths through your diaphragm, in and out of your belly, okay, and through your nose and out through your mouth. Concentrate on the exhale, okay? Everyone, we inhale all the time. If you count your breaths, your exhale should be longer than your inhale, but that's for most of us, that's not how it works. That's not how it is because of our posture. So you should focus on the exhale, and you should focus on breathing out and really contracting your abs and pushing out with your diaphragm on the way out, all right? So being mindful of your breathing, sitting up straight and being mindful of your breathing will take you a long way to help with your breathing when it comes to sitting and not having problems with that in the future. Breathing problems can come in a variety of different ways. So it's not just a matter of just like not being able to breathe and losing your breath, but I mean, it can come in digestive issues. When you don't breathe through your diaphragm expands and contracts just like any other muscle. So when it does that, it moves all the organs around it. It'll move it and keep them lubricated and keep them moving. So when you don't breathe through your diaphragm, they stay still, and all of a sudden your digestive tract doesn't move like it's supposed to. Which again, it loses, not loses ability, but it's just harder for your digestive tract to digest food. I just said digest like 10 times in a matter of 60 seconds. Anyway, so breathing is number 2. We want to sit up straight, and we want to be mindful of our breathing. Breathing through our diaphragm, breathing in through our nose, out through our mouth. Trying to shoot for a count of 6 to 8 seconds when we're breathing out. So that's number 2. So we've done mobility, we've done breathing, and now we're going to go to the fountain of youth. Excuse me. Going through puberty again. My wife makes fun of me whenever my voice cracks. So the fountain of youth. If you're not exercising on a regular basis when you're not at work, so if you're 3 to 5 times a week, you're not going and you're doing some sort of strength training, resistance training that is already working your fountain of youth out, even if you are doing something most likely like leg press, leg extensions, anything like that you're using your legs, I mean, odds are even if you're doing some sort of squatting, something like that, there's a good chance that your butt's still not doing the job that's supposed to do. So you just want to make sure that it's activated. And I'm not going to tell you to go and do heavy deadlifts and squats to work on your glutes because of sitting. I'm going to tell you to do some simple activation drills. So a couple of things that you can do, and you can do these at work during your rest break. Don't worry about looking funny. Like you just want to live longer and move better when you get older. So don't worry. About an hour ago, I recorded the original video, and the microphone died, so the sound shut off. And then 5 minutes ago, well, not quite that long, 60 seconds ago or 90 seconds ago, the camera died as I was re-recording that portion. So now, for the 3rd time, we're going to re-record the end of the video. And we're going to finish up with our Fountain of Youth talk. So what can we do to fix our Fountain of Youth when it comes to sitting? We've already talked about mobility and breathing, and now we want to talk about the Fountain of Youth. So there are two things that we can do. When it comes to fixing your glutes, it's not as simple as just doing squats and doing deadlifts because, sorry, I'm trying to write different words than what I'm saying, so I'm having to think harder than usual, which is never good. So it's not as simple as doing squats, deadlifts, and things like that because your glutes may not be doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, especially if you're in a fitness center atmosphere and you're doing hack squats and leg press, leg extensions, leg curls, things like that. Like those things don't activate your glutes the way that they should. Well, they're not supposed to because they take your glutes out of it. You're just using quads and hamstrings in most of those on most of those machines. So we want to do glute activation exercises. We're not worried about weight here. We're just worried about repetition. Okay, so hip bridges and bird dogs, and I'm going to link these up at the end of the video in the description, but hip bridges and bird dogs are the things that we want to focus on. When you're doing your hip bridges, we want to do 3 sets of 15. Again, it's all about repetition, how many we do. It's not about weight necessarily. And then bird dogs, we want to do 3 sets of 10. And you can do these during your breaks at work, anytime during the day, in the morning, at night before your workout. They can be part of your warm-up as your workout, which is a great idea. The other thing that the bird dogs are going to do are help activate your spinal stabilizers. Most people work a lot on their rectus abdominis, their six-pack, whenever it comes to their core, because that's what they like to work on. And whenever someone tells you to work on your core for your back pain, which 89% of people over the age of 30 have had some sort of back pain, they tell you to work on your core, so you work on your six-pack. But all you really do are a bunch of crunches or something along those lines where you're just constantly flexing and extending your spine, which is really just doing more compression damage than anything. So you want to work on your spinal stabilizers as well, and that's what bird dogs are going to help you do. So hip bridges, again, repetition, 3 sets, 15, and then bird dogs, repetition, 3 sets of 10. Put those into your warm-up and put those into your just your routine throughout the day. Get up out of your desk, do that at your break. Don't worry about looking funny. You're worried about living longer and moving better throughout your life. So that's our Fountain of Youth. Again, we went over mobility, and we talked about, that was 2 or 3 hours ago at this point. So we talked about getting up and moving around and not staying in the same position. And then we talked about breathing. And breathing, we talked about make sure you sit up straight, not compressing, not getting your rib cage down onto your diaphragm, and then being mindful of your breathing. So if you guys have any questions, we're going to do another Q&A episode at the end of the week. Send them to Twitter at the Thrive Pack, or on our timeline on Facebook. You can ask us questions there. Thanks for the questions last week. They were great. It was a great episode last week. And week before that, or 2 weeks before that, we did a Q&A, our first Q&A episode. So looking forward to more questions. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully this is the last time I have to record this. All right. Yeah, it was just like the last 5 minutes.